I just wanted a little escape. No drama, no emails, no endless calls, just a break. So I booked a small, quiet hotel nestled in a sleepy lakeside town. No chain, no fancy name, just peaceful. I arrived on a cloudy afternoon. The receptionist, an older man named Mr. Bram, was polite but barely spoke above a whisper. He gave me a brass room key, yes, an actual key, not a card, and told me I'd be in room 203, second floor, Lakeview. Best at sunset, he said. And it really was. The room had that cozy vintage charm, floral curtains, a rocking chair by the window, and the kind of silence you don't get in cities anymore. It was almost too quiet, but that's exactly what I wanted. That first night, I curled up with a book, sipped peppermint tea, and let the stillness wrap around me like a blanket. At some point, I dozed off without even realizing. Everything was calm. Everything was perfect. But I didn't know yet that the room above mine, room 303, was supposed to be empty. I don't know what time it was exactly, maybe around 2 or 3 in the morning, but I woke up suddenly. Not because of a bad dream, not because of the cold, but because of a sound. Tap, tap, tap. It was faint, but definitely coming from above me. At first, I thought maybe someone had just checked in late. Maybe they were just settling into their room. You know, unpacking, walking around, that sort of thing. But it didn't stop. It wasn't footsteps. Not really. It was repetitive, like someone pacing back and forth slowly, sometimes pausing, then tapping again. Almost like they were dragging something heavy across the wooden floor. Then stillness, then tap, tap, tap again. It was just enough to keep me awake. I considered calling the front desk, but talked myself out of it. I mean, people are allowed to move around in their rooms, right? And maybe I was just being overly sensitive because everything else around here was so quiet. Still, I stared at the ceiling for a long time, waiting for it to stop. Eventually, it did. And I fell back asleep. But when I woke up in the morning, a strange thought popped into my head. Didn't Mr. Bram say I was one of the only guests staying here this week? The next morning, I went downstairs for the complimentary breakfast. Just toast, jam, and instant coffee. The small lobby felt like a museum frozen in time. Old paintings, a dusty piano, a grandfather clock that ticked way too loudly. Mr. Bram was behind the counter again, quietly reading a newspaper. I tried to sound casual as I sipped my coffee and asked, "Busy weekend ahead?" He looked up slowly. "Not really. Only 2 rooms booked. Yours and the Wilsons on the first floor." I blinked. "Really? No one on the 3rd floor?" He shook his head. "Not this week. We don't usually open those rooms unless it's peak season." I smiled, but something cold twisted in my chest. I wanted to ask more. I wanted to say, "Well, I heard someone up there last night," but I didn't. I felt weird, like I'd sound paranoid or rude. Maybe it was the plumbing. Maybe the walls were just old and echoey. Maybe I dreamed it. Still, I took a long look at the stairs leading to the 3rd floor as I walked back up to my room, and something told me I wasn't imagining anything. That night, I kept the lights on a little longer than usual. I tried not to think about it. The fact that room 303 was supposed to be empty, but still made noises. I even played calming music on my phone to distract myself. It worked. For a while. But around 2:17 a.m., just like the night before, I heard it again. Tap, tap, tap. Only this time it was louder, closer, slower. Like someone was walking directly above me, heel to toe, dragging something soft across the floor. I sat up in bed, heart pounding. Then came the creaking. You know that sound an old wooden floor makes when someone shifts their weight? That soft groan of pressure? I could feel it. Like the sound was pressing down right above my head. Then something different happened. The tapping stopped. And instead, I heard a chair scrape across the floor. That's what did it. That sound, that unmistakable noise of a heavy chair dragging. Exactly above my bed. I couldn't take it anymore. I picked up the room phone and dialed the front desk. Mr. Bram answered, his voice groggy. Front desk? Hi, I know this sounds strange, but there's someone in the room above me. It's been going on for 2 nights in a row. A pause. Then, carefully, room 303 is locked. No one's up there. My hand tightened around the phone. Are you sure? Yes, he said flatly. No one has a key. No one has been assigned to that room in months. I didn't say anything. But I didn't sleep either. The next morning, I stood at the bottom of the staircase, just staring up. The 3rd floor looked forgotten. No lights on, the hallway was dim and silent. But something about it felt like the air itself didn't move up there. I don't know what came over me, but after breakfast, I waited until Mr. Bram went to the back room, and I snuck upstairs. Each step creaked under my feet. Old carpet, dusty railings. Everything looked untouched. Room 301, 302. Then I stood in front of room 303. The door was just like mine. Chipped paint, brass handle, old keyhole. I leaned in, not sure what I was expecting, but I didn't hear anything. So without really thinking, I knocked 3 times. Nothing. I almost turned to leave, but then I swear I heard a single breath from the other side of the door. Not footsteps, not words, just a breath. Like someone had been standing right there, listening. I froze. Every instinct screamed at me to run, but my feet wouldn't move. Then I heard something else. A faint creak, as if someone took a single step away from the door. That was enough. I turned and walked fast back downstairs, trying to look normal in case anyone saw me. But inside, I was shaking, because no one was supposed to be up there. I didn't sleep that night either, not after what I heard behind that door. But I tried to tell myself I was just tired, jet-lagged, stressed. Maybe I imagined it. Maybe the old hotel played tricks on the ears. Still, the moment I walked back into my room, something felt off. like the energy had shifted. And then I noticed it. The rocking chair by the window, my favorite spot in the room, wasn't where I left it. I always pushed it neatly beside the curtain. Now it was angled slightly, facing the center of the room, like someone had been sitting there, watching. I hadn't touched it all day. I was sure of it. I checked the window, still locked. Checked the hallway, empty. I even checked the closet. Nothing. But the chair. It stayed where it was, silent, still, heavy with suggestion. I went to the front desk again. Mr. Bram looked tired, like he didn't want to deal with me. There's something weird going on. I think someone has been in my room. He gave me a long look. No one has access to your floor except me, and I didn't go up there. Then he added something strange. Sometimes this building remembers things. I blinked. What does that mean? But he just gave me a sad smile and walked away. That night, I didn't turn the lights off at all, and I kept my eyes on the chair.
I couldn't sit around pretending nothing was wrong anymore. Not after the footsteps, not after the breath behind the door, and definitely not after the chair moved on its own. So I made a plan. That afternoon, while the lobby was quiet and Mr. Bram was out of sight, I scribbled a short note on the hotel stationery. I hear you. Who are you? Are you okay? From the guest in room 203. I folded it, crept back upstairs, and gently slipped it under room 303's door. I felt ridiculous, but also weirdly hopeful. I went back to my room and waited. An hour passed, then 2. Nothing. Curiosity got the better of me, so just before sunset, I quietly returned to the 3rd floor to see if the note was still there. And that's when I froze. Because the note was gone. Not crumpled, not half sucked under the door. Just gone. Like someone had gently pulled it in from the other side. I stood there, heartbeat thudding in my ears. The door stayed closed, silent, but I suddenly had the clearest feeling that someone, something, was waiting, watching. And for the first time since I arrived, I felt truly, deeply unwelcome. After the note disappeared, I couldn't stop thinking about room 303. I started second-guessing everything, my memory, my sanity, even the noises I'd heard. But one thing I knew for sure. That note didn't vanish by itself. That night, I paced my room, unable to sleep. Out of frustration, I opened the narrow closet next to the bed. It was just a small wardrobe, empty except for 2 coat hangers and a single extra pillow. But when I reached up to adjust the shelf above, my fingers hit something tucked in the back corner. I pulled it out. It was a leather-bound journal, old, dusty, and cracked along the spine. No name on the cover, no hotel branding, just a diary. Someone's private thoughts. I opened the first page. I'm still hearing them above me. They say the 3rd floor is empty, but it's not. My blood ran cold. It wasn't my handwriting, but the voice on the page, it felt way too familiar. Every entry that followed described exactly what I had experienced. The tapping sounds, the chair moving, the breath behind the door, even the weird behavior of Mr. Bram. And the last page, if you find this, it means I didn't make it out. That was when the light in my room flickered, just once, but enough to make me shut the journal, place it gently on the table, and sit down, heart racing. Who left this here? And why did it feel like it was written for me? The next morning, I decided I needed answers and maybe a friendly face. I wandered down the lobby clutching the journal in my hand. To my surprise, I found Mrs. Rivera, the elderly housekeeper, quietly dusting the front desk. She glanced at the journal peeking from my bag, and her eyes went wide. "Be careful with that," she murmured, voice barely above a whisper. "That belongs to someone who didn't leave well." I startled. "You know whose it is?" She sighed, leaning closer. "They say the third floor holds memories, trapped ones, people who stayed too long or never left. That journal belonged to one of them." I swallowed hard. "But the hotel staff says no one ever checks in there." She nodded, eyes distant. "Sometimes the building grants wishes or punishes regrets. That floor listens, but it never forgets." Then, before I could ask more, she snapped back into the proper housekeeper smile and hurried away, leaving me with a dozen new questions. Like, what regrets were trapped up there? And why was I destined to uncover them? I couldn't stop thinking about what the housekeeper said. The journal, the regrets, the hotel listening. It was all starting to make a strange, haunting kind of sense. That night, after hours of pacing and overthinking, I finally made my mind. I had to go inside room 303. It wasn't curiosity anymore. It felt like a pull. Like I wouldn't find peace unless I knew what was behind that door. I waited until the hallway was quiet, then crept up the stairs one slow step at a time. When I reached room 303, I reached into my pocket. I had secretly borrowed an old skeleton key from a forgotten storage closet on the first floor, hoping, just hoping, it might work. I took a deep breath, slid the key into the lock, but before I even turned it, click. The door swung open by itself. My breath caught. No creaks, no sound, just an open door. I stood there, frozen, in the doorway. The room inside looked like a mirror of my own. Same rocking chair, same curtains, same bed. But it was darker, older, dustier, as if no one had stepped inside in years. And yet, the bed was rumpled, the chair was turned, and there, on the nightstand, was a photo frame face down. I took a cautious step forward, and when I picked up the photo, my heart nearly stopped. It was a picture of me, asleep, in my own bed, from last night. I barely slept after what I saw in room 303. I don't even remember walking back down the hall. I just remember clutching the photo in my hands, staring at it under the weak glow of my bedside lamp. Who took that picture? When? And why me? By morning, I felt like I was unraveling. Out of desperation, I opened the journal again. Maybe I missed something. But as I flipped through the pages, my fingers stopped. There, at the end, where the last entry used to be, was a brand new page, written in handwriting that looked eerily like mine. Don't trust the quiet. Don't trust what looks like you. If you're reading this, they already know you opened the door. My throat went dry. I hadn't written that. Had I? I looked at the date at the top of the page. Today. I slammed the journal shut. The air in the room suddenly felt wrong, heavy, like it was pressing in from every corner. I glanced toward the mirror across the room, and for a split second, I thought I saw someone standing behind me. But when I turned, there was no one there. I wanted to leave, pack up, check out, never look back.
But something told me if I left now, I'd never be free of this place. Whatever was happening here wasn't finished yet, and somehow it wanted me involved. I needed air. After the journal, the mirror, the photo, I rushed outside. The wind by the lake was cold, sharp, grounding. I took a long walk just to clear my head. Maybe I was sleep deprived. Maybe this hotel was doing something to me. Old buildings can do that. Hold stories, emotions, energy. But when I came back, something happened that I still can't explain. I was walking down the hallway toward my room, room 203, when I glanced up toward the third floor balcony, and I saw myself, just for a second, standing at the top of the stairs, wearing what I wore yesterday. Expressionless, still, just watching. Then I turned and walked quietly into room 303. I ran up the stairs, heart pounding, not even thinking. But by the time I got there, the hallway was empty. Room 303 was locked again. Not ajar, not creaking open, locked. Cold, silent. I don't remember getting back to my room. My hands were shaking. Was I losing my mind? Or was something else wearing my face? And if so, why? That night, I sat on the edge of the bed, surrounded by silence and questions. I couldn't shake the image of me walking into room 303. Was it a dream, a hallucination, or a memory? Out of instinct, I pulled open the bottom drawer of the desk, where the hotel usually kept stationery and a pen. But instead of paper, I found something else. An old check-in receipt. Room 203. My name was on it. But the date? 3 years ago. And below that, written faintly in pencil, checked out early. Guest reported strange behavior. Memory unclear. I stared at it, heart pounding. I don't remember ever staying here before. I don't remember this town, this building, or that room. But clearly, I had. I flipped open the journal again, hoping for clues. One of the earlier pages caught my eye. This place pulls you back when you forget. It waits until you're ready to face what you ran from. And suddenly, it hit me. This wasn't some random hotel. I had been here before. Something happened here, and I left without remembering. But now, the hotel wanted me to remember, and it wasn't going to let me leave until I did. I packed my bag. I didn't care what I'd forgotten. I didn't care what the journal said. I just wanted out. I headed down to the front desk, dragging my suitcase behind me. Mr. Bram wasn't there. No one was. Not even the housekeeper. The lobby felt still. Too still. I stepped outside and paused. The lake was gone. I don't mean it dried up or disappeared behind fog. I mean, it wasn't there. Just rows and rows of buildings that didn't exist yesterday. All exactly the same. Identical windows, identical bricks, as if someone had copy-pasted the same block over and over. I turned around, and the hotel door was already shut behind me. I tried the handle, locked. So I walked around to the back. No alley, no service door. Then I looked up. Only one window was lit. Room 303. I ran back inside. Or tried to. But no matter what hallway I turned into, I kept ending up at the top of the stairs, facing that same door. Every hallway. Every turn. Every door I opened led me back to room 303. It was like the hotel was folding in on itself. And suddenly I knew There were no more exits. If I wanted to break the loop, I had to go inside. One last time. My hand hovered just above the brass handle of room 303. It felt warmer than it should have, like it had been touched recently. For a moment, I hesitated. But this time, I didn't run. I couldn't. The hotel had made sure of that. So, I turned the knob and stepped inside. The room was dim, lit only by soft gray light coming through the lace curtains. It looked exactly like mine. Same layout, same furniture, but everything was older, dustier, and yet familiar. On the bed, I saw it again. The same photo frame, now upright. Inside was a picture of me, younger, happier. And beside it was another item I hadn't seen before. A letter, folded, with my name written on the front in handwriting that sent a chill down my spine. I opened it. You've been here before. You ran away the first time. You wanted to forget, but forgetting left you lost. The only way out is through. Remember why you came here. Remember what you left behind. The room was quiet, but I could feel something shifting inside me. Memories I couldn't quite name began to stir. Not frightening, just unfinished. Suddenly, it wasn't just room 303 I had to face. It was me. The moment I read that letter, something in me cracked. I sat on the bed in room 303, letting the silence wrap around me. Not in a scary way, more like a memory pressing softly on the edge of awareness. And then, it came. A memory I didn't know I still carried. 3 years ago, I checked into this hotel. Not for a vacation, not for peace, but to escape. I had just made the hardest decision of my life. Letting go of someone I loved. A relationship that ended not because of anger or betrayal, but because we both couldn't carry the weight of what we lost. We were supposed to get married, but after the miscarriage, everything changed. We drifted, we hurt in silence, and one day, we stopped talking altogether. I came here to forget. I remember now how I stared out at the lake for hours, how I avoided mirrors because I couldn't face myself, how I left in the middle of the night without checking out, desperate to erase the entire weekend. And I did. Until now. This room, the sounds, the photo, the journal, it wasn't haunting me. It was reminding me of what I left unfinished, of what I tried to bury. Not ghosts, not curses, just grief, waiting to be felt. I stayed in room 303 until sunrise. I didn't sleep, I didn't cry, I just sat there, breathing. For the first time in years, I let myself feel everything I'd been avoiding. The love I lost, the pain I buried, the version of myself I left behind in this very room. It wasn't easy, but it was honest. And in that stillness, something subtle shifted. The heavy feeling that had clung to me since I arrived began to lift. The shadows in the corners softened, the silence didn't feel so sharp. The rocking chair stopped feeling like a threat and more like a witness. I stood up, folded the letter, and placed it beside the photo. Then I opened the door to leave, and this time, it didn't lead me back to room 303. It led straight into the hallway, to the staircase, to the lobby. And at the front desk, Mr. Brahm was finally there, watching me with a small, understanding smile. "No more noise upstairs," he said gently. I nodded. No more running either.
and I stepped outside into the morning light. The lake was back. The town was real again. The hotel had let me go. Because I'd finally faced the one thing it needed me to see. Myself.
After leaving the hotel, I walked through the town like I was seeing it for the first time. It looked different now, warmer, less eerie. The buildings no longer mirrored each other. The sky had that soft, early morning glow. People were out and about, chatting, sipping coffee, opening shops, and no one looked surprised to see me. I passed a woman watering plants outside a bookstore. She smiled politely and said, "Back again?" I nodded, unsure whether she meant it literally or if that was just something people say in small towns. But a part of me knew. They remembered. Maybe not in the usual way, but they knew I'd been here before, and they knew why I came back. That's the thing about this place. It doesn't confront you with flashing lights or locked doors. It waits, quietly, until you're ready to stop running from the version of yourself you left behind. And when you are, it lets you go. I found a bench by the lake, the same one I remembered from before, though my memory had been fuzzy until now. Sitting there, I thought about everything. The room, the journal, the photo, the echo of footsteps in the night. The hotel was never just a building. It was a mirror, reflecting all the parts of me I'd hidden away, the grief, the hope, the fear, and the strength I didn't know I had. I realized that sometimes the hardest journeys aren't about escaping a place. They're about escaping ourselves, about facing what we bury deep inside, and only then, maybe, can we finally come home. As the sun warmed my face, I smiled. I was ready to. Years from now, I'll remember that little hotel by the lake, not as a place that trapped me, but as the place that set me free. It wasn't haunted by ghosts or mysteries. It was haunted by memories I needed to face, by love I needed to grieve, by a self I needed to find again. The room above me, it wasn't empty. It was waiting for me to be brave enough to stop running. And when I finally did, the hotel opened its doors. Life is strange that way. Sometimes the places we dread the most hold the keys to who we really are. And sometimes to move forward, you have to first go back. So if you ever find yourself in a quiet hotel, hearing noises where there shouldn't be anyone, maybe it's not a ghost. Maybe it's your own heart calling you home.